Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over what I think could be the first expansion for Diablo 4. And I know this is jumping the gun a bit, talking about an expansion for a game that's not even released yet, but I think with this being a live service game, I think a lot of the big changes and big additions to the game are going to come in those expansions, and I just find it pretty interesting. And I've mentioned a couple of times in my videos over the last couple of months that I've had a theory of what the first expansion for Diablo 4 is going to be, and we've gotten a ton more information since then that also points to that being the case. So all of this starts off at BlizzCon 2019, where they had a lore panel for Diablo 4. So they basically mentioned in this lore panel that the gates of heaven have been closed, and none of the mortals, none of the Haradrim, nobody has any contact with anybody in heaven. So they're completely shut off from each other, and they get no help, have no communication with heaven.
And also, it's important to mention that, since the events of Diablo 3, heaven closed its gates, phones off the hook, they're not taking our calls, right? Nobody's answering. Haradrim are incommunicado,
we're
so
screwed,
we're kind of on our own.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, not great.
But we also know that we will be going to hell in Diablo 4 on the launch of the game. So we will be fighting in hell. And that's basically what started my theory that it would be pretty cool for Diablo 4 to progress through the seasons. And then once we get up to the first expansion, it would be an expansion that opens up the gates of heaven. And then we get to go in heaven and get a bunch of other content related to that. And since then, we've actually gotten a ton of additional information that points to that being the case. Now, the first thing was an art piece from Display that was not supposed to be posted, and it was quickly taken down, but people were able to take screenshots of it. Now, I went over this in another video. A lot of people think this is going to be the 6th class added into the game. And this art piece is essentially a different version of multiple other art pieces we've gotten for Diablo 4. The first one only showed the 3 first characters we got revealed, so the sorceress, the barbarian, and the druid, because that's the only characters we knew were in the game at that point. But this leaked one has all 5 of the launch characters and a character in the middle that looks to be some type of angel or Valkyrie character. And I'd recommend going and watching that video if you want further breakdown on that. But this character has a shield, a big spear, angelic looking wings, but with a face, so that shows that it's not an actual full angel, but this is pointing towards a holy based class, which is something we don't have. And I would fully expect that getting new expansions in Diablo 4 is where we would get new classes if that expansion is going to have a new class. And having a shield and spear using holy character fills a lot of boxes that's kind of missing on launch of Diablo 4. No holy characters, no characters using spears, and no characters really focused on using shields. Necromancers can use shields, but they're not really focused on them, something like a crusader would be. So this leaked art piece is another piece of information pointing towards the first expansion being holy based. And the newest piece of information we have pointing towards a holy base expansion is the newest cinematic where Inarius is in hell with his armies searching for Lilith. Now, Inarius is a rogue angel who used to be an archangel, and him and Lilith actually created Sanctuary, which is the mortal world of Diablo 4. And this is pretty much the first time the public has learned that there will be any entities from heaven in the main story of Diablo 4, and it's seeming like he's going to play a pretty big role, but it also seems like he'll probably primarily be in hell searching for Lilith. Now, my general theory on this is that as we keep getting seasons, we will continue to get new stories that continue to lead up into that holy expansion where the gates of heaven would open up. Because one of the big pieces we're getting with every new season is new main story quests. And that was one of the things that was specifically mentioned to be in every new season. So most likely we would be getting continuations of the story for Diablo 4, taking us through new stories, but also bringing us closer to whatever that next expansion is going to be. And I would probably expect that's actually how the game's story is going to continue on for years to come. We'll have a handful of seasons, probably a year or a year and a half of seasons, where the new stories of those seasons are all pointing us in a direction. Then the expansion comes out that is kind of the continuation of all of those seasons and brings us into the new big main story quest. So if this ends up being the case and the first expansion is a holy base expansion where the gates of heaven open up, I would probably expect we'll be venturing into heaven, having a bunch of new play space in heaven, maybe the size of one of the regions of Diablo 4 on launch. We'll obviously probably be getting new seasons and all that stuff, but then also a new class, like I mentioned, that potentially leaked holy based class that seems to be a Valkyrie or an angel. I'm leaning much more towards of it being some type of Valkyrie class with a big shield and a big spear, more of a holy warrior type thing. And then the story would be a continuation of whatever happens between Inarius and Lilith and our heroes. And I think another good reason for the holy expansion being the first expansion would just be a palette change, because Diablo 4 is so focused on darkness, on being super gritty, going to hell, having a sanctuary be this super dark and gritty world they've created, and a pretty big contrast to then go into the super bright holy palette of heaven. And the more that I've been going through this theory, the more that I've been thinking that this could almost be seen as a sequel to Diablo 4. Not in terms of the game, but in terms of the story. So Diablo 4 on launch would be basically the first movie, and that takes us through Sanctuary, so the super dark, gritty parts of Sanctuary. Then it takes us down into Hell, potentially fighting with Inarius, trying to hunt down Lilith. And then throughout the seasons, we're getting more story, maybe based around Inarius, maybe more entities from heaven come down. And then that leads us into the first expansion, this holy heaven-based expansion, and that would essentially be the sequel to the Diablo 4 story. And I think this would generally be a pretty good way to continue the story of Diablo 4 into future seasons, into future updates, and then into those future expansions. And heaven is also a really big part of the Diablo universe, and it's something that won't really be that heavily touched in Diablo 4. Like mentioned, the gates of heaven are closed, and it's seeming like the only entity from heaven we will really be coming in contact with is Inarius, who's trying to hunt down Lilith as well. We don't know if we will be allies of him or fighting him as well. But that battle between heaven and hell, and then Sanctuary kind of in the middle, is a really big part of the lore, the story, and just the world of Diablo. So also wanting that to be the first major expansion would also make complete sense, because I'm sure there are a lot of Diablo fans that also really like the stories that have been told in heaven, really like the characters, and would be very interested in going back to heaven for Diablo 4. So I think there's just a lot of really good reasons as to why a holy expansion would be a very good fit for being the first expansion of Diablo 4. But that's my theory for what I think could be the first expansion for Diablo 4. So subscribe if you want to see more Diablo 4 or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this potential theory. And thanks for watching.